Northwest Premier Supra Mahumapelo takes on the ANC NEC in court today. He's joined the bid to overturn its decision to disband his provincial executive committee in August this year. Mahumapelo had stepped down as Northwest Premier in May after allegations of corruption led to violent protests in his province. Now, Advocate Dalimpofu is representing Mahumapelo. Let's cross live now to my colleague Aldrin Sampier, who comes to us live from the South Gauteng High Court. Aldrin, good morning to you. So, what is at the core, what is at the heart of this argument by the members of the ANC from the Northwest?
Well, firstly, the main applicants are arguing that, remember that roadshow that the NEC, the NWC had just before disbanding the PEC. They're arguing that there were members or people who are not members of the ANC who were allowed into those meetings, and they believe, based on that, that those meetings were not valid and did not meet the constitutional requirements of the ANC. But quite interestingly, having the former chairperson, Supra Mahumapelo, being part of this bid, he brings in a new argument, and one of those arguments is, if you argue, this is now the ANC NEC arguing that the branches of the province have been dysfunctional since 2016, that then means that the national audit must have been in disarray, considering that some of these branches participated in the national conference that took place in December. And based on that, that then means that the conference of 2017 must then be invalid. And the former chairperson joins me. He has actually arrived a few minutes ago to a jubilant crowd. Former chairperson, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Let's first start there with that argument. 2016, the PEC, the NEC says, starting from 2016 December, some branches of some branches in the Northwest were dysfunctional, and you are making the argument, yet you allowed them to participate in the national conference.
Yeah, well, exactly our point. That you cannot, as an NEC, you are elected in December. You have a PEC that was elected in 2015, in February. You have only been in office for 4 months. And suddenly when you wake up, you realize that there's been branches in the province that you say have not been functional. And you yourself, through the former SG, Ntate Gweda Mantashe, you signed off the audit report of those branches, and those branches were allowed to participate in your own election as the new NEC at the Nasrec conference. So we see that there's a dubiousness, to be honest, because what the NEC could have done with us was to be honest with us and say, how do we then correct this list of branches which they say they are non-functional? We only realize when this step is taken to take the dissolution of the PC to court, then the ANC NEC says that the branches have been dysfunctional. You can't later realize that only when you are challenged on your decision. So what we need from the leadership is just to be honest, transparent, and be genuine with the branches of the African National Congress, and stop pleasing a particular group that believes that they have emerged triumphant at the Nasrec conference, because that group has been meeting before we went to Nasrec. They continued to say they will dissolve the province. Towards January 8, after January 8, they started meeting on a weekly basis, including some of the NEC members. That is why yesterday I wrote a letter to the SG to tabulate to the SG all these machinations which have now resulted in the NEC simply rubber stamping what a particular group has been saying must happen after conference.
Interesting that you should use the word machinations, because that's the word that has been used by the president of the ANC as well, President Cyril Ramaphosa. Have you spoken to him about this issue?
Well, we speak to the structure. I'm just an ordinary member. To reach the president is going to be very difficult.
Has he reached out to you?
Well, I haven't received any invitation from the president. I don't need to receive any invitation from the president. The person who has been communicating whatever decisions that have been taken by the National Executive Committee, by the NWC, including the decision that I should be in the PTT, was the SG. So we have been in regular communication because he has to communicate the decisions.
What happens now for you?
Well, what happens is that one must continue to be active in the structures of the African National Congress. You don't become active because you are elected into a particular position. But this posture of this new NEC must be challenged irrespective of the outcome of this court until we reach the next National General Council and the next National Conference. It doesn't matter what happens here in court. We will pursue this particular matter until it's addressed properly by the ANC.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean that through the structures of the ANC, we have a constitution.
Do you mean that you want the NEC to be dissolved as well?
Well, I'm not saying that they must be dissolved. But what I'm saying is that if the NEC is not going to run the affairs of the ANC consistent with the constitution of the ANC, it's not only the branches of the ANC in the Northwest that will realize that. If it becomes the realization and the conclusion of branches in the country, then according to the constitution, that has to be brought to the attention of the NEC.
Has it been brought to your attention that there are some people that are saying that perhaps what we should have is a special conference?
Well, I've been seeing that circulating in the social media. If indeed there are branches in the country that say there must be a special conference, there's nothing wrong with it. It's in the Constitution. If it's going to follow how it's outlined in the Constitution, nobody can say it must not take place. But for now, we want the NEC to address the matters in the manner in which we expect them, as the NEC to address them. You can't, within 5 months of an election, you are dissolving, you are polarizing the organization, you don't bring people together. When Nasrek has said, unite, renew. To unite and renew, you require patience as leadership. Don't rush into decisions.
At the Maharan Hotel, did you discuss this with the former president?
When I met with President Jacob Zuma, the intention was to discuss with him 3 reasons why I decided to exit as the premier. One was the fact that the name of the ANC was being dragged in the mud using the name of Supra Mahumapelo. 2, it was that I was going to take legal action against certain individuals, and I'm taking that legal action. If I take that legal action and I'm still the premier, it will be seen as me using that office to settle political scores. 3, it was very clear that the integrity, the standing of the office of the premier was being affected by that particular group which was destabilizing areas of Taung, Jobetin, and Mahikeng. So I discussed that with President Jacob Zuma, but I also shared with him my own views on how I think him, as the former president of the ANC, he can work with the current president of the ANC without giving details to the nation and the structures on how the organization can be united.
And it was not about overthrowing the current president?
No, it can't be. Why should we be working on overthrowing anybody? We must unite the organization, renew the organization. If there are issues, we will not shy away from raising them in the structures of the ANC. So you don't need to be plotting during the middle of the night in some hotels and so on. And also, if you take yourself serious, you can't be doing such matters in a hotel, you know. We will come to Lutula House and raise those particular matters if need be.
Former chairperson of the ANC in the Northwest, Supra Mahumapelo, thank you so much for your time. Well, as you heard there, Xoli, it will be up to this court to decide whether the PEC of the Northwest is reinstated. But as the former chairperson has indicated, and as I sum it up, is that the battle is not over even after the court's final decision.
Aldrin, very quickly before you let the former chairperson go, will you please kindly ask him if he's still part of that provincial task team in the Northwest?
Okay. Here's a quick question that Xoli wants to know from you. Are you still part of the PTT?
No. I've never been part of the PTT. I'm not going to be part of the PTT. It's important for us to be elected, for us to serve in the structures of the ANC. I can't be happy to serve in a structure that is pinpointed, by the National Executive Committee. So I wrote a letter to the SG.
New, isn't it? It's nothing new in the Northwest. It's been there.
Yes, we have been dissolved before.
Yeah.
And I was never part of any PTT. I believe in being elected. You have to be elected to serve in a structure. You can't be parachuted into the structures of the organization. And you can't say you are bad to be in the PEC, but you are good to be in the PTT. It's a contradiction. It doesn't make sense.
And you were saying the SG, the letter to the SG?
No, I've written a letter to the SG yesterday explaining why one has taken a conscious political decision to adopt this particular approach. Because the process of the ANC says exhaust internal remedies. Now, exhaust internal remedies include the NEC. Now, if it is the NEC that flouts its own procedures, like flouting the procedures on the Eastern Cape after this Bontebele report, where can you go to? Your only avenue, it is the court.
Just a quick one. It's a bit strange that you're making this point, because at some point you were one of those who were saying that ANC members shouldn't be taking the party to court.
I'm still saying,
but here you
ANC members should not be taking the ANC to court. You must exhaust internal processes. It is only when the highest decision-making body in between conferences flouts the Constitution and its processes that you can then resort to the courts.
Well, Xoli, there you have your answer.
Thank you very much.